Good day, YouTubers. Happy Friday. Continuing on with the Kymco motorcycle slash scooter slash two-wheel transportation device. Doing some more work on it today. Got the Littelfuse inline fuse holders. And you might be wondering, well, first of all, where are they made? They're made in Taiwan. I was hoping that they'd be made in the US, but apparently we can't even make small items like this anymore. And immediately you might be wondering, well, what the heck? It's just a circle. Well, stand by. So what do we do with this? Well, first of all, I want to look and see what the wire size is. So it looks like 14 gauge, legitimate 14 gauge wire, as opposed to the non-legitimate 14 gauge wire that comes out of China. But anyway, these are just simple fuse holders, and they just fit together like so in the slotted portion there. Made up the tabs, but you're like, well, what good is that going to do me because it's a circle? Well, you have to cut the wire. Cut the wire in the center, strip the end, and in this case I'm going to be using, since this is 14 gauge wire, these are going to be too small. I went over these in the last video. I do have some others, which are in my case of many colors. There's the small ones. Got some in the blue. I've got some neutral translucent color. And of course we got the crappy crimp locks everybody's familiar with who does electrical work. Yes, they do work. They're not the best, but they do work by pinching down on the wire insulation and cutting through it to contact the inner portion of the wire. Again, not the best solution, but so we're going to be replacing my fuse holders as per my last video. They're cheap and just pressing on the brass or whatever metal that they chose to use. I just pressed on it like this, and it broke in my finger. Just a slight press, and it just snapped. So I figure I'm going to just replace all three of them while I'm at it. So let's do that today. I also got a thing of dielectric grease because I couldn't find my small tube. This will keep out water, contaminants. You can just pack it in there and pack it into the end where the wire enters it. Once you've got it all hooked up and connected, you can just pack that dielectric grease right in there. What you're trying to do is prevent water intrusion and prevent air from getting in there and causing oxidation, etc. So, and we will be checking the functionality of the LED light bulbs that I put in the other week. There's the battery. It's been sitting on my desk for a week or two, and probably do the fuel filter too. It's just a gravity feed tank down to the carburetor, so as long as the fuel line is in good enough condition and of the proper size, I should be able to just plug and play with that. We'll see. Tool bag, multimeter. Let's go to work. Okay, here we are at the scooter. Battery compartment removed. Here's a hot tip. Don't manhandle your plastic pieces and they won't break. Because whoever removed this at one point broke off the one tab that was over here. So, yeah, be gentle. I also noticed there's a missing cover plug that is part of the floorboard area. There's one there, one screws holding on this floorboard piece that's got the grid pattern on it. There and there. So, another item that's missing on a scooter that only has 200 and some miles on it. So, yeah. A lot of things can happen to something even though it's got low miles. In this case, they're minor issues. So here's the little fuse connector. I peeled back some of the electrical tape that was wrapped around there, give myself a little bit more working room. Yes, I could solder it. Yes, I could use a butt connector of the appropriate size. Everybody's familiar with those. But the Posi-Lock connectors are handy. That's the medium-sized blue one. I don't know if the red one is going to be large enough for that 14 gauge wire that's on the little fuse here. We'll see. If I can get away with using it, I will. And then the translucent one here is the largest size. I doubt I will need to use that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these crappy connectors off that they've got. I'm going to do them one at a time. The first one I'm working on is the 7 amp fuse, which is this little glass fuse. And the first thing I did was to check to make sure that it fits properly into the holder. You notice this is a full 360 degrees where these are just partial. And whatever material that they are made from is just very, very cheap. And this is the piece that broke off when I just gently squeezed this particular connection last time. It just snapped off right in my finger. I'm like, oh, that's great. So I'm going to replace all three of those with the little fuse made in Taiwan. And I've already checked the fitment on the glass fuse here, inline fuse. We'll do them one at a time, and I will have to cut the wire here in the center and then do my Posi-Lock connectors. I wish they would print the wire size. Maybe they do now, but these early ones, they didn't have any wire size listed, printed on the outside of the plastic here. Would be nice. Maybe the more recent ones they manufacture do have that. Okay, it looks like I can use the red connector here, which is the small one. There's the stripped portion, but I think I need to strip it a little bit more. It will fit into the blue cap with the insulation as it is. It'll fit right into there nicely, and then it protrudes on the inside there, as you can see. Now the wire size has to go through the inner diameter, which is smaller, I think, than the exterior diameter, which accommodates the insulation. However, on the red one, the cap here is a little bit small to get that exterior insulation in place there. I might have to trim that a little bit. As far as the inner diameter on that, I checked it by just reversing it and going in from the threaded section first to see that the wire would indeed go through there, and it does. So it's usable. I just need to take my utility knife and trim a little bit, reduce the diameter of the insulation here a little bit so that it will fit within the plastic cap here. So I will do that. And the fitment of the fuse itself is much, much tighter than the Chinese version that came with the scooter here. So we're going to use that. It's going to take up maybe a little bit of room, extra room. This is the cover they had originally. And well, these two pieces are connected together, probably a little bit larger. Hopefully we'll be able to jam them in there with the battery. There's not a whole lot of space in that battery compartment. Okay, I trimmed it so that the bare wire is just to the end of the threaded section there. And I trimmed the insulation so that I could get the cap on here. I will put dielectric grease around that when I'm done. But that's the one side. Doesn't matter which end you connect to which wire. It makes no difference at all. So this is 14 gauge wire, and these, according to my wire stripper, are 18 gauge wire. So very small wire on the scooter. So that's why I'm opting for the smaller connector here. It'll take up a little less space than the blue one here. Although I'm sure the blue one would still work just fine with the smaller gauge wire. That's what it looks like when it is on there and attached. I use 2 pairs of pliers on the plastic here to tighten it down a little bit more. About a quarter turn or so. You have to be careful because you can easily strip those plastic threads if you tighten it too much. So you just want maybe a quarter of a turn more after you got it finger tight. And trust me, that is a solid connection there. So I'll do the other side and attach it to the wire here. That's all you need to strip. That's about a quarter inch right there. So you don't have to strip very much. And that's the finished connection on the one side. I will have to do another connector on this side. And then the fuse will be connected in there, just like so. And there is the finished connection. There's the fuse inserted. Obviously the cover is not in place yet, but that is easily put together. I will put dielectric grease in potential areas for water getting in, so right around here, around the threads, because this whole compartment will be exposed to moisture dripping in. This is not a weather tight seal, so the moisture does get down in there. They do have drain holes in the bottom down on this side, a couple of drain holes. Looks like there might be a couple on that side as well. But yeah, it will get wet in there. I will write down the amperage on the outside with some permanent marker. So this is going to be the 7 amp. And I'll do the same thing with the other two, which are different amperage ratings. Job is completed. There's the little bits of connectors. There's the fuse holders. Vastly improved from what they had as far as their connectors that snap off with a little bit of pressure. These are, of course, removable. The Posi-Loc connectors, and you can connect, in this case, a larger size wire to a smaller size wire. Throw out the trash, and the only tools I needed was the wire stripper, of course. You need a good wire stripper. This one goes up to 22 gauge, which is the smallest. I needed 18 gauge and 14 gauge sizes on the stripper itself, and you want to make sure it's, you know, sharp and in good condition so that you get a clean strip of the wire. And then I had just used a pair of needle nose to get a tighter twist on the Posi-Locs here. You might see it a little bit offline as far as not centered when you twist it. That's perfectly fine. Just don't twist it any further that it's going to start stripping out. So if it's a little out of line from the main body of the Posi-Loc, that is perfectly normal. And trust me, those are tight. I will put on the dielectric grease, but first, before I do that, I could have slathered it on the connections, but I didn't want to get it on the threads and make it more prone to potentially slipping and stripping. So I'm going to do it after the fact on areas where water can get in there. But first, I want to make sure that I can get everything in there once the battery is in place before I slather on the dielectric here. To keep the water out, battery is, last time I checked, when I did the last video, it was at 13 volts. I checked it this morning before I came out here, and it's at 12.8, I believe, 12.8 or 12.6. And of course, now I've got it sitting on concrete, and it's probably at 0 volts now. Oh my gosh. What will I do? What do we have here tucked in the battery box compartment back kind of behind here, sitting on a ledge, plastic ledge with this little plastic catch holding it in place. We've got a connector here with, I don't know, 6 or 7 wires on it. And it says Kymco on the box. I'm guessing this is their CDI ignition box. It's got a part number, I guess, or some kind of number there. It's got another number on the front. Got some sort of compound covering all the electronics. I'm guessing this is the CDI box. Wouldn't hurt to put dielectric grease in that connector. So, but first, checking the battery fitment with the wires. It looks like it is a success. Got the battery connected and kind of tucked them over here in front of, or to the left of, the CDI box that sits kind of in here. So the fuse holders are, all 3 of them are over on this side, and then the Posi-Locs are just kind of laying on top of the battery, and plenty of space. And then if you need to take the battery out, you can just pull the whole assembly out as one unit, like that. Just set it off to the side, disconnect your battery, pull that out. So I'm going to plug in the ignition key here and start it. I want to check to see what kind of charging voltage, if any. Not that I'm, not that I'm a negative person, but let's just say my faith in made in China things is not the greatest, shall we say. So we'll check the multimeter, provided the engine actually starts. Put it on DC volts and see what kind of charging voltage we get. Let's do a voltage check while we're at it. Put it on DC volts. And heck, you can't see anything there, can you? The standard of error on this is, what do we got here? DC volts. 440 and 400 volt setting, plus or minus 1% of the reading. That's the accuracy on this meter. So we got red is positive, black is negative, going on the terminals here. 12.68, 66. Okay. Let's start her up. Got to pull the brake lever in. I need 3 hands to do this, apparently. Straighten it out. Oh, pull the brake lever in. And we're in the key in the on position. That helps. Does not have a tachometer. It idles high. That's normal for a high idle on these scooters. It's about 1800 RPM. And we're going to check to see if we have charging voltage. And indeed we do. 13.9, 13.96. Yep. So our charging system is functioning. Rear wheel is spinning. Turn signal check. Nope, flashing super fast, so I gotta replace that. Oh, strangely, the right side flashes normally. Oh, but it's not working at all. Interesting. I guess it's gonna need a flasher unit. Yeah. Well, those LEDs are definitely bright. And it flashes the instrument cluster lights when I go to the right. Yeah, that's kind of goofy. Oh, what's going on with the headlight here? Is that like an automatic visibility thing? Is it supposed to flash like that? I don't know. Even the high beams flash. Well, that's interesting. Alright, so we're going to have to do some checking on here. We got turn signal issue, we've got a horn issue. Horn is non-operational.